Hey, what is going on, guys? Today on the channel we're going to be talking about the iPod Touch 4th generation. So let's go ahead and check it out. So this video is going to be basically a review of the iPod Touch 4th gen and if you can still successfully use it in 2019. Now, this was my second ever Apple device. My first Apple device was a 3rd generation iPod Touch. And this is one of my favorite Apple devices of all time, especially since it got me into Apple products. I remember this thing was $200, which back then that was a good amount of money, especially for an iPod, but it was worth every single penny. So let's talk about the design a little bit of this iPod Touch. So it's hard to believe that we were all used to such a small form factor when we have phones today, like the iPhone 10 and 10R and 10s, with those larger screens. It's hard to believe that we used to use these little 3.5-inch screens, basically a 4-inch device. Probably one of my favorite design cues of this device is the stainless steel back. Now, yes, over time it got absolutely destroyed. You can see mine is pretty beat up, but there's not a single iPod that wasn't beat up. I mean, that's one thing about having the stainless steel back, and that's probably why Apple decided to, well, not do another device like this. But I really do miss the design. It'd be pretty cool if, maybe one day we got a new iPhone with that stainless steel back. On the front of the iPod, you have your camera and your home button. It's nice to see a home button. On the bottom, we have the 30-pin connector, a microphone, and a headphone jack. And then on the left side, you have your volume. On the back, a camera, and on the top, your lock button. So all those classic Apple buttons here on this device. Now, the battery life on this iPod, it's not too good, especially after all these years of use. I don't use this thing regularly anymore, of course. It mostly sits on the charger, but when I tried to use it a little bit more regularly, I didn't even get an entire day out of this thing. But the battery life when it was new was pretty good. I believe you can get like 40 hours of playback with music, so that was pretty nice. So the Retina display is another really awesome feature on the 4th generation iPod Touch, and this came out, this is one of the first devices to actually get the Retina display. Along with the iPhone. This is, like I said, a 3.5-inch display with a 960 by 640 resolution and 326 pixels per inch. Very nice display. Of course, with it being this tiny, you can't even see any pixels, and it looks just as good as the Retina displays do today. Now, this iPod Touch, of course, had cameras, and well, they're really not too good. But the time it was a decent camera, but today's standards, these are pretty bad. They're not the worst camera in the world, but like I said, they're just simply okay. One thing I'm still surprised about this device, after using it a little bit today, is the performance. This thing is still really smooth. Apps still open up relatively quickly. Some games and other applications take a long time to load, and you may notice some slow frame rates, but when you're doing normal stuff here on this iPod, everything really loads pretty decently, and it's really not too far off compared to some devices today. Now, of course, a new iPhone or iPad is going to blow this thing out the water, but iOS 6 was pretty decent and pretty quick. And that's another thing, this device only runs iOS 6. There are some people that have managed to somehow get iOS 7 on this thing, but you'll be fine with iOS 6. But because you use iOS 6, you'll notice that if you go to the App Store and you try to download some apps, it's going to download the last version that they had of that app in iOS 6. So really, most apps nowadays either can't be used, or when you download an older version, they still can't be used because everything has changed so much. So could you still use this device in 2019? Well, absolutely. If you wanted to use it as a music player, that's totally fine. That's what I like to use it for. As I have Pandora, iHeartRadio, and even YouTube. I like to put it on my old school iHome and just play music through it. So if you're using this thing solely as a music player, then it is definitely going to work just fine for you. But if you're going to be using it more to play some games or use other applications, you may run into some problems here and there. It'd probably be best, if you still want an iPod Touch, just go ahead and buy one of the new ones. Anyways guys, that's all I got for you today. Hope you enjoyed this little kind of throwback to review. Let me know if you want to see anything else like this. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and I will catch you all in the next one.